Good morning. It is still morning. I just snuck it in. It's good to be back. Good to see you guys in the chat, popping away. What's up, Josh Ham? My wife says like the show. Yes, please do. As you wander on in here, please do hit the like button. And I'm also streaming on X. If you want to go over Real King Pilled on X and hit the retweet on that, that would be awesome. Much appreciate you guys. So apologies for missing the show yesterday. I went up this weekend and picked up my little sister, brought her back from Oklahoma City, and needed to return the rental car early Monday morning, or Sunday morning rather. And I ran down the stairs. Woke up late, was running down the stairs, headed to grab my keys, and I sneezed, and instantly just there goes, just right up in the underneath the shoulder blade up here, just absolutely spurged out on me. So I know as soon as it happens, I'm like, I know what the next like 2 or 3 days is going to be like. And then I had a dental appointment yesterday and I had my crowning ceremony. I got the crown put on, and she anesthetized the absolute shit out of my whole jaw, like all down here. She did I think it's called a block up here. So my whole half of my face was numb. It was even more numb than it was the first time. It was almost making me, I was sitting there, she did like the, kind of cleaned it up and everything, and then took the scans and went in to make the crown. And she told me it's gonna be about 45 minutes. So I'm sitting there just kind of hanging out, staring out the window. They have a bird feeder hanging out the window, and there's a squirrel trying to get into it. So I was sitting there watching that, and realized I was starting to feel a little spacey. I've never had like a local anesthetic make me kind of space out, but it definitely did, and then things just further went downhill yesterday. But back up and running this morning. I've got the ASTROLABE this morning, and then this afternoon I'm going to be joining Dimes from the Blood Satellite podcast on a conversation on a German YouTube channel. Let me grab the link for it real quick so you guys can go give them a subscribe and then watch the show this afternoon. I believe it's going to be live. We're going through StreamYard, so I'd imagine it's going to be live. Here it is here. Consequent Fray. I don't know if that's exactly how the Germans would pronounce it, but Consequent Fray. This is the channel that we're going to be having a conversation on this afternoon. These guys are German, and they are interested in the PayPal mafia phenomenon, the rising counter elite. We're seeing even the internationals are interested in what's happening. So they're curious to know how that will correspond to their experience in Germany, and talk a little bit about that. So that's gonna be the conversation this afternoon. I showed you guys the channel on YouTube, Consequent with a K, Consequent Fry, Frei. Go follow them. That will be at 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern this afternoon. What's up, Taylor Brown in the chat? Yeah, sneezing past 30 is dangerous. My wife was making fun of me for it, as she should. And I said, I'd say that I think this is like me getting old, like I'm finally officially old, but this has been happening to me since I was in like college. The whole like sneezing and something goes out, or like you step off a step wrong and your hip goes just any sort of thing like that has been happening to me basically since I was in college. So maybe I've just been old my entire life. All right, let's get us started here. We got to start it in the most appropriate way. I'm going to play this clip until you guys are tired of it.
When they took a shot at my hero, and they tried to kill the next president of the United States, enough was enough. And I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother. Let Trumpomania rule again. Let Trumpomania make America great again.
Auslander Rouse, brother. That's some good shit. I'm glad Taylor Brown says, joke's on you. I'll never be tired of Hulk Hogan, brother. That's right. Wit says, way different vibe than the DNC going on now. I was just out smoking a cigarette just before I came up here to get started, and I was doing a little scrolling, and I saw they did some guy, he came up and he pulled his shirt off. He just had like a button up or something, and he just opened it and took his overshirt off, and it said like Trump is a scab or something. They're just reacting. All they could do is try to be as cool as we are. Oh man. I saw some video of a bunch of chicks, the Women's Caucus, singing the national anthem, and it is just, these are the most talentless people in the world. They're as talentless as they are insufferable. There's no reason that they should maintain control of anything. That they do is a massive condemnation of us, that we can allow our society to be governed and controlled by these talentless retards. Speaking of talent, professional podcaster here. What's the guy's just completely spaced on his name? So there goes the podcaster talent. Who's the guy who finds all of the he can find any spot in a map. He says it in here, but I just completely forgot the name of it. Anyways, here's the talent. Here's the white boy power.
I'm done being locked up. I'm done with this. I'm sick of this. I'm done. There we go, for good this time.
What's up, gangster? My name is Kobe, and I can find any location in the entire world. To find the exact location of your ankle monitor, I slowed down your video to look for important clues. First, I noticed a car with a California license plate driving by. Next, I noticed you were on a bridge. And last clue was this triangle structure in the background. I then spent the next 6 hours of my day going through the 25,000 different bridges in the state of California. Finally, I got my big break. I found the bridge. It was called the Shakespeare Bridge in Los Angeles, California. I grabbed my laptop and drove 3 hours to the Shakespeare Bridge. I started looking around for the exact area that you threw the ankle monitor. Finally, I located it directly in the bushes. I jumped directly over the bridge and went straight to the target. I secured the ankle monitor in my case and went straight to the Los Angeles Police Department. Now, I may not be able to find you, but Sergeant Bedewick and his 30,000 officers will. Good luck, gangster.
I wish I could remember the guy's name. I thought he said it here, but it was actually a reply to the first tweet that I saw about it. I find this this really, really clever. Layering the different types of bits here. So you've got the felon who is he's dumb enough to go out on social media and post him committing felonies. And then you've got the autistic white boy, but he's also like one of these really obnoxious Zoomer TikTok guys. He looks, where was the picture of him? This is after he threw it. So right here, he just looks, he's kind of got a little Zac Efron to him. He's got all of his computers up here like, this is what he's doing. He's scouring TikTok to find guys who are cutting off their ankle monitors and throwing them out. And then he's riffing on the bit of the guy that I can't remember his name, the the guy that he can find anywhere on a map. He's the absolute master of Google Maps. It's going to drive me crazy that I can't think of it. But if you notice here in this video, right here, he points at the really obvious landmark right up here, really obvious, distinct landmark, and then watch his eyes. He's looking down to make sure he's got a little gap open here so you can see the car coming up beside him. And then, what was the other one? There was another tell. Oh, this one's a little harder to see. When he tosses off the monitor, the ankle monitor, I was far off. He tosses it and it lands in a different place. It's sitting right out here on the top. It goes down inside the bushes when he actually throws it. So the whole thing is obviously a setup. But it's set up to look organic, and it's pretty believable. The vast majority of people who see this are going to think that it's real. That this is actually some guy, because it's believable that you would have some felon who pulled his ankle bracelet off and tossed it and did it on camera on social media. And then also the fact that he'd have his face covered, he probably wouldn't be smart enough to have his face covered. So the whole thing is just very believable, very creative. This is the sort of thing that makes me really optimistic about the Zoomers. That when the stuff that's not, like, it's not directly political, but it's transgressive in a way that shows that they don't really care about the school marm, longhousing. You know, these guys have grown up their entire lives being inundated with propaganda about how wrong it is to ever portray a black person as a criminal. It's like these videos that have been going around lately of the sorority chicks who are doing these like choreographed dances, and 100% of them are blonde, pale skin, blue eyes. And someone pointed out that these women have been inundated with this propaganda their entire lives. The fact that they don't have some token minorities just plugged in there with them says a lot. And in the same way that I think this type of humor, someone wanting to create this, going out of their way to do all of this, and then having it go viral, and having these transgressive elements within them, this makes me very optimistic about the future. The kids are going to be all right, as they say. The nothing's ever happening bros are just having a real rough one right now. I think they may need a binky because more things are happening. Not only is Eric Prince going and meeting with Bukele is highlighting it, taking a video of it, highlighting it, and he knows his social media game. This says something, like posting this video this way. It hints at something. It's like something that's maybe kind of off limits is happening.
How are you, sir? Eric Prince. Real pleasure.
Nice meeting you.
I saw you speak at CPAC.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Thank you.
I'm proud of who my enemies are. I've made a few around.
I'm proud of who my enemies are, he said.
That's good, right?
I visited Sikot yesterday.
Yes, I saw
I was very impressed. And I will proudly go back and tell the good news story that it is possible to turn around chaos. I'm not surprised, but also disgusted that the State Department still lists El Salvador as a super dangerous war zone country.
Well, hopefully they will change that because it's unsustainable really to keep it at level 3. We should be in level 1. It's not going to happen, but at least level 2 it will be more sustainable.
How are you, sir?
So, I don't think there's a lot to take from the conversation. It just is basically exactly the sort of conversation we would expect them to have, particularly if we're selecting for conversations that they would have, that they would film and intentionally release. I'm sure this is not the extent of their conversations, but you can see already that the way that they're talking is like Eric Prince is here serving as a sort of foreign emissary. So we could see. I personally, I know a lot of people want to see Eric Prince in the administration or the cabinet, but like I don't. I think he's better off out. He's better off on the outside. I was talking last week about the Balaji Srinivasan and Vivek conversation that they had, where they hit on this, where Balaji is they're almost the same guy, except Balaji is the outsider and Vivek is the insider. And we need both of these. We need the insider going in and insinuating himself into the inner circles and acting from within. And then we need the outsider who is willing to be friendly with the insider, but is an outsider for a reason and wants to build on the outside, because this ends up forming like a pincer movement. The insiders and the outsiders together corner their opposition and force them into taking one option or the other. This is basically how the regime itself has operated for a long time. So they're having their own intel ops worked against them. I think probably the best example of this possible is Vance and Vivek and their closeness, their friendship with one another, and yet there's a subtle but significant difference between their approaches. Both of them are vocally anti-administrative state and see it as their mission to ensure the destruction of the phenomenon known as the administrative state. But they want to go about it in two different ways. Vance wants to fire all of the existing workers and install our guys, have our guys working in these positions. Vivek wants to eliminate the organizations altogether, just eliminate the positions completely, just hack and slash them. The problem is, if you go in with just that perspective, if the only thing you rally around is the most absolute position, like Vivek's, if that was the official position of the RNC, then mounting opposition to them would be much easier. They're going to make themselves much more avowed enemies. They're going to make enemies who are much more avowed against them by coalescing around the one most radical position. The intelligent way to do politics here is to have both perspectives, to have the outside guy and have the inside guy, because it assures that you're going to get something in your direction. And once you get that something, then you can add more on top of that. If you go for the most radical position right out the gate and coalesce entirely around that, then people are going to be able to oppose you much better. You're going to have you get a lot more work that you got to go through to try to get yourself into power. It'd be very interesting to watch moving forward how many different times we can pick out this phenomenon happening. What we're seeing is right-wing political operators are becoming savvy. They're actually I think it's probably pivoted now, where the insiders, the actual operators, are much more savvy than the average Twitter poster. And for a while, that wasn't the case. For a while, your average anon on Twitter could probably evaluate these situations and understand them and know how to relate to them much better than the actual insiders. But I think that's if it hasn't flipped yet, it's almost completely flipped. Now the actual insiders are legitimate, savvy operators who know what they're doing. Our first Trump clip of the day. Autism Capital has been cranking out bangers lately and has the attention of Elon. Elon and his orbit like to signal boost Autism Capital a lot. Trump with the headshot banger out of nowhere.
Hello, everyone. I only want you to donate to my campaign if you can afford to. Unfortunately, most of you can't afford to because Joe Biden is a disaster. Hello.
Only Trump would actually say something like that. Only Trump would even conceive of it, and much less actually say it and get away with it. Another Trump clip here. So, Charlie Kirk tweeted out this video of Trump during his RNC speech. The way he had Corey Comparatore's uniform up there and the way he related to it, and then a comment from Corey Comparatore's wife.
Corey's firefighter gear was displayed at the Republican National Convention, which was a special honor.
That was an honor. That was a big honor. Yeah, that was a big honor. I'll tell you why. All day at the rally, my husband kept saying, he's going to call me up on stage. You're going to hear him. He's going to say, Corey, come on up here. Corey, get up here. he was just joking, you know, obviously, but he kept saying that you're going to get up, you know, he's going to call me up on stage. And we were all like, there's his moment. He's up on stage. So, yeah, he got his moment on stage.
Corey.
A little bit of feels for you there. Corey is when Trump is elected, say under Project 2025, we're going to erect monuments to Corey Comparatore. Pete Quinones in the chat. What's up, Pete? He says, you can't save the country and the economy unless you cut massive numbers of public employees. It's a part that goes with Powell's strategy. Yeah, I agree. And I think that there's as I look at this relationship between Vance and Vivek, I see, okay, so you have the Vivek representing the obliterate everything perspective, and Vance being the get rid of, like, obliterate the people, but keep the positions and use the positions for our guys. Given everything that I've seen from Vance, everything that I've knowing his history, the circles that he's run in, the types of things that he's said, I mean, he's been on the record with a lot of this for a long time. I see Vance as taking this posture from a rhetorical perspective. It's a rhetorical posture. We need to eliminate them, and we need to staff them with our guys. The way it's actually going to work out is that some positions are going to be eliminated. Hopefully, at least half. Hopefully, there's a significant number that are eliminated. But either way, I think it's probably a given that all of the ones that should be eliminated aren't going to be eliminated. So, secondary to that, I want to have this motivation there to also, whatever positions are remaining, to ensure that they're staffed with our guys. So it isn't 100% of the fire focused on just eliminating the positions, and then you wind up, oh, we were only able to get 60% of the positions eliminated. There's still 40%, and we didn't staff them with our guys. So we've inched forward. We haven't gone as far forward as we could. So that's the way I read it with Vance. I read it as a rhetorical thing, not so much that he genuinely believes that that some of the positions need to be retained. I think he recognizes that some of the positions are going to be retained, so we need to equally have momentum toward staffing them with our guys. Okay, this most recent, I don't know, actually it might not be the most recent now, but one of the recent conversations that Tucker had on his channel, I started listening to it, not really expecting. I'd heard some good stuff about it, but I was like, I don't know if I'll listen to this whole thing. And I wound up listening to the entire thing. It was phenomenal. This chick who went to the Stanford, I just completely forgot the name of the school. Anyways, she was a surgeon. She was an ear, nose, and throat surgeon. Finished top of her class at Stanford, and then her brother was also like Harvard Business School, top of his class, and he went more into the like business and economics and entrepreneur kind of route. And the two of them just discovered he was involved in political lobbying, I think lobbying for Coke, and she was working as a surgeon. And both of them just became completely disgusted with the state of big pharma and the medical industry. And man, they went hard. And it was kind of wild to hear, because you could tell in a lot of the things that they say and a lot of the just their background. They're from DC, lived in DC their whole lives, from a wealthy family. They're very much regime archetype personalities, and you could tell they're not like these aren't I don't know the types of people who are sitting there listening to Pete Quinones necessarily, or yours truly, Thomas 777, even Orrin McIntyre. I don't even know if they would be listening to Orrin McIntyre. They don't seem like they're super tapped into dissident politics, but they're sincere, honest people who went deep behind enemy lines and then realized that it wasn't enemy lines and are being very honest about it. So, their names were Casey and Callie Means. Callie is the guy and Casey is the girl. So I've got a couple of clips from them here talking with Tucker, and let's share the screen. Going to speed it up a wee bit. And share.
Can you just give us the baseline condition of health in the United States?
Absolutely. So the word I used earlier, destroyed, is not hyperbolic in any way, shape, or form. 74% of American adults now are overweight or obese. Close to 50% of children are overweight or obese. 120 years ago, when someone was obese, there were case reports written about it.
Yes.
Literally, there were people in the circus if you had obesity.
Sideshow fat. Yeah, it was so unusual.
It was so unusual. It is now 74% of our country. 77% of young adults are unfit to serve in the military because of these issues like obesity. Now let's talk about diabetes. 50%. A full 50% of American adults have prediabetes or type 2 diabetes, which is a fundamental issue in how our cells, half the country, Tucker, have prediabetes or type 2 diabetes, and 30% of teens now have prediabetes. This was a condition that no pediatrician would have seen in their lifetime 50 years ago. 1% of Americans in 1950 had type 2 diabetes. We have 18% of teens with fatty liver disease, a disease that used to be in late-stage alcoholics. Cancer rates are skyrocketing in the young and the elderly. Young adult cancers are up 79%, and this is the first year in American history we're estimated to have over 2 million cases of cancer. 25% of American women are on an antidepressant medication. 40% of 18-year-olds have a mental health diagnosis. We have the highest infant and maternal mortality rate in the entire developed world, despite spending 2x on infant and maternal care than any other country. So you have a higher risk of dying as a woman giving birth in America than any other developed country in the world. Autism rates in kids are 1 in 36 nationally. This was 1 in 1,500 in the year 2000, and the screening has not changed. In California, where I live.
I just want to linger on that. And the screening has not changed. So
in 20 years.
The definition hasn't changed.
No, 1 in 32 from 1 in 1,500. In California, 1 in 36 right now. It was 1 in 1,500. In California, it's 1 in 22. One of the worst states in the country for autism. So this is just a smattering.
What the hell is that?
And all of these conditions. I mean, and I could go on and on. Autoimmune diseases, infertility is at peak rates. I mean, I don't know how this is not front page news. Infertility is going up 1% per year. Sperm counts are going down 1% per year.
1% per year. Infertility rates going up 1% per year. Sperm counts are going down 1% per year. This is insane.
Since the 1970s. Sperm counts are down
continuing to drop?
Continuing to drop.
At an increasing rate. Our bodies are crying out for help.
26% of women have polycystic ovarian syndrome. Now, the thing that people need to understand is that all of these conditions are caused or driven by the exact same thing, which is metabolic dysfunction. This core foundational issue of how our bodies on the cellular level function, which is driven by our toxic food system and our toxic environment. These subtle, insidious forces that are creating slow, progressive illness starting now in fetal life that allow patients to be profitable and on the pharma treadmill for their entire lives. They make us sick, but they don't kill us, and then we are drugged for life.
Can you just give us...
She was cooking the entire time. It was funny, a couple of different times her brother would chime in to start to say something, and she was just like, no, I'm not done yet. She was absolutely spitting fire the whole time. I've got a couple other clips here that I think, I haven't watched them ahead of time. I just knew they were good, so I threw them in here. I got actually one other clip. Yeah, this is a good one. So she actually had Tucker getting emotional sometimes when she was starting to talk about being a mother. And this is the clip I have here. The Tucker and I both got emotional as Casey spoke about parenting, critical thinking, feminism, the spiritual crisis of childhood health. One of the most extraordinary statements I've ever witnessed. Now, again, these are you might hear, oh, metabolic dysfunction. Oh, Ray Pete's going mainstream. No. They spend a lot of time talking about how dangerous added sugar is. These are not Peters. I mean, you've probably imagined coming from Stanford and Harvard straight onto Tucker Carlson. I would imagine they're probably not Peters. But they're also not like they're basically the archetype of a shitlib. Even the way they kind of talk about spirituality and stuff, you could tell they're coming from this. They're not like raised Christian their entire life. I don't even know if they would consider themselves Christian at all. But what they are pointing directly at the truth in their own way. In a way that reveals them to me to be just really, really sincere, authentic people who are they're genuine. If you're genuinely searching for truth, then you're going to see it. You're going to find it. You're going to start talking about it, even if you don't talk about it perfectly at first. Check out this clip here. I'm going to let it run as much as I can. And 5 minutes of her getting into... This is beyond just, oh, well, Big Pharma's corrupt and there's lobbying. And he talks about how the cigarette companies, basically the cigarette companies pivoted into food, making ultra-processed food and making it as addictive as possible. So it's hyper addictive and hypo-nutritious. There's no nutrition at all, but it's massively addictive. And then they talked about the role that lobbying plays, the way that the head of the different medical schools and stuff are just political appointees effectively. And it's completely corrupt, completely distorted. All the incentives are fucked. This is what they were talking about. But then they got spiritual and started talking about fertility and parenting. And so they've kind of got a little bit of a hippie vibe to them, which is very interesting.
Simple root cause.
Can I just press you just a tiny bit?
Sure.
I hate this.
I know.
Why did you come to that conclusion and none of your colleagues did? I think it's really important to understand why certain people see obvious truths while everyone else, including smart people, are blinded to them. What about you allowed you to connect these pretty obvious dots?
Parenting.
How? What did your parents do?
My parents. Our parents focused on incentives. Incentives are everything. Incentives are why Americans are sick right now. If we change the incentives, we get healthy in 2 years. Our country would be the most competitive country in the world. My parents' incentive in our family was to ask questions, not to have any stars or marks or anything, So what was celebrated in our family was sitting down at the dinner table in DC and asking questions and poking at ideas. We were celebrated for thinking about things in a bigger picture. That is not, you talked about this with Tim Dillon on your recent podcast, the boomers, they just want the stars for their kids, to get all these little badges. But that was not what was celebrated.
We developed our own compulsion to climb up the ladder, but it was always instilled like, ask
add
questions.
value,
And
ask
we
questions,
never
think for
felt
yourself.
actually like our parents were that happy with rising up. And it was like, are we being good people? Ask, and that was really instilled in us.
Did they have a moral, explicit moral center? Like this is right.
I think they were very spiritual people.
Yeah.
We were raised with spirituality. We were reading, sacred texts and the Bible and Rumi and Ayn Rand and all these different things from a young age, discussing it at the dinner table, thinking about philosophy. And so that was what was celebrated.
So they were not conformists.
When I quit my surgical residency in my 5th and final year, after hundreds of thousands of dollars in my education, my parents threw me a party. They were they came.
And no parent would do that.
No parent. They were, and they never told me to quit.
Hundreds
but
of thousands of debt.
Absolutely. They were so proud of me for coming to my own conclusions and seeing it. And there's a lot of
even though the incentive for parents, at least in DC where I raise my children, is to tell people in your neighborhood, your friends, that you have a daughter who's a Stanford.
They never pushed us to go to Stanford. They never pushed us to I never once ever in our entire childhood they said you need to go to your college counseling meeting ever.
This interview, I just checked. This interview has 1 million views on YouTube now. YouTube is a small section of Tucker Carlson's audience. The largest podcast in the world. So they're on Tucker Carlson, the largest podcast in the world, delivering probably the most important message they possibly could be to the average person right now. This is the effect of good parenting. Their parents have them reading Rumi and Ayn Rand and whatever. Like, these were not, good old American Christians. These were like DC insider professionals who were themselves, she tells the story of how her mom died. They were themselves completely bought into the DC world. And yet, in such a key area, they diverge from it, and look at what is going to come of that. Their children now, because of these skills that they've and the support that they gave them, that they bred into them, they have the opportunity to go and to deliver this message on a massive platform. One little family in one little corner of the world, deep behind enemy lines, doing the right thing, can yield massive, massive effects downstream.
They were about having fun and thinking. We were, they were older parents too. My parents were in their 40s when they had us. They lived lives. They were not living through us. They were spiritually grounded. They're not afraid of death. They aren't driven by the materialism that just makes you rack up a wall full of, awards. It was about our being
you're
good
making me
people.
emotional.
Yeah. That is the reason. That is the reason. And I mean, there's privilege involved in it too, of course. Like, we had financial backstop. A lot of my friends going into medicine, they were supporting their families, right? And I have so much respect for that. And the fact that people's options are limited, but doctors are in a trap. It's $500,000 of education. You have this guaranteed salary, and all you have to do is drink the Kool-Aid. All you have to do is stay heads down and not ask questions, not ask why. And you can really feel good about your work, right? People are sick as hell in this country, and we do need people to be doing heart surgery, or else people will die. But the thing that is so imperative for people to understand is that the reasons we're having surgery, the reasons why we're getting sick, the reasons why American competitiveness is plummeting, the reasons why our kids are chronically ill, half of the kids in America are chronically ill, are all from preventable issues. So if you're a doctor who's not spending any time on focusing on that, then unfortunately, for better or worse, you are bankrolling on the problem.
Do you remember when
I honestly think you're going to change the world. I mean that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just had to say that.
Thank you. Thank you for having us here.
Oh, sorry. It's just so. Your description of your parents is
It brings me to tears.
Oh my gosh!
I cannot wait to have children. There is no greater role. There is no greater role in this world. And I was told such a bill of lies, like climb the medical ladder, become the chair of an institution. I can think of no greater thing that we can do than have children and keep them healthy, right? And I just, up until a couple years ago, I didn't even want to have children because I thought it was a liability to this value system of just like rise the ranks, make money. But I don't think there's anything more important we could be doing than creating healthy children who are thinking for themselves, who are eating healthy food. And I cannot wait for that role. And I think it's a spiritual corruption of our society right now that we have forgotten that this is the most important thing that we can do. It's unbelievable how far off we are, and I think it is deeply a spiritual crisis because we have lost sight of what really matters in our lives.
And you were singing my song, and much better than I ever could. So that is sorry, so just completely carried away.
Wit says, I loved her speaking about soil and female fertility being the same, Mother Earth. Yes, that was, man, she has been touched by the finger of God. You can tell the way she's saying 2 years ago, she was just like, I don't even want to have kids. Now she is speaking directly at the heart of the biggest issues in the most honest and true way I've heard from just about anybody. And anybody who wants to tell me that Tucker is like an op or something, Tucker is subversive, you can get fucked. He's platforming these kinds of conversations and giving them his massive enthusiastic stamp of approval. You have got to pull the black pills. The black pill enema needs to be removed. It's like you guys have a black pill butt plug stuck up there that's just distorting everything that you see. I know that the great listeners of King Pilled are very well aware that Tucker is not some kind of subversive agent. He's our subversive agent. But we never know who's trickling on in here. She makes a point later on. I go listen to the whole thing, but she makes a point about how this correspondence between the way that there's been this sustained assault on female fertility through the pill and everything downstream of that, and the way we've completely decimated our soil, and that these are the fertility of our women and the fertility of our soil are the things that are going to determine whether or not we continue as a species. And the entire system, and she's not just like, oh well, we need to kind of like tweak some things and just make a few little changes here, and you know, she has compassion for the doctors. Tucker's like, when are we going to be lining doctors up against walls? And she's like, well, you know, I do kind of feel for them. And I think it's good for her to maintain this. This is the role of the woman. The role of the woman is to indicate to the man, this is how bad the problem is. And then when the man is like, all right, I'm going to go start chopping heads off of everyone I see, she says, okay, now hold on. You need to contain that rage. You need to contain and direct that rage in a productive way. The vast majority of doctors have themselves been entrapped into this system. They're being held there against their will. They don't want to be participating in something like this, but the magnitude of the imprisonment it breaks their brains. So it's easier to just live in cognitive dissonance and make a rationalization to yourself, just cling to the white pill. Oh, well, we need people doing surgeries. I'm doing surgeries. I'm saving people. Bob came in the other day and he was going to die. And if I hadn't done this surgery for him, he would be dead today. And look how sad his family would be. It's good that I'm here. It's good that I'm doing what I'm doing. Yeah, the system sucks, but just got to do what you're doing within it. This is the banality of evil. You get an entire system made up of people who are just like, yeah, I just got to keep my head down and just do my thing, and try to have as much of a good impact in whatever areas I can, while they're operating within this larger system that is abjectly evil, that is headed in an evil direction. There's a lesson here. This is like a microcosm of the human experience. So he says, I think she's going to change the world. I think she is. The energy that she's taking to this and the connections that they have because they're behind enemy lines, I think that they're going to make a real mark. They already have. Even just that episode, just getting on Tucker Carlson and delivering that message the way that they did is massive. And it makes me wonder, how many more people like that are there? We think of, Washington, D.C. or New York or Los Angeles or San Francisco. We think of these as these giant blue blobs, because they are. But how many people within those giant blue blobs are like her or her brother? Lobbyist for Coke. And now he's blowing the whistle on the deep-seated corruption within the entire industry. How many more are there? Something happened to her a couple years ago where she went from being like, I don't even think I should have kids, to this is my purpose as a woman, is to have children and advocate for the women who cannot, to go to war on women's fertility. Something changed in her in a matter of a couple of years. Many such cases. We're in a very spiritually alive time, which means the demons are on the prowl. It also means, and if you want to think about it this way, the angels are on the prowl. People are being raised up. They're being touched and raised up and called to a purpose. Joe Rogan has finally responded to this post. It's been going around for a while. Someone posted on 4chan the most perfect description ever of Joe Rogan's podcast. And Joe Rogan has finally reacted to it and said, the most accurate description of my podcast I ever read. Says, Joe Rogan is like some barbarian Khan from the steppes that took an interest in intellectual things, and his show is basically him bringing slightly nervous scholars and magicians to come before him to explain how the world works. Glasses man, you explain to Joe why sky big and how tree grow. But he will also believe almost anything you tell him, and only recently in the past few years does he clap back like, Tiny Hat Man say otherwise. Do you lie to Joe? Tiny Hat Man say fat not bad for you, that sugar is enemy. So which is truth? Joe thinks you are wrong. And people just nervously go, oh, okay, yeah, I guess so. Joe spent many moons on horseback and training with bow and sword, but Joe also wonder why skyfire rise from mountains every morning. You will explain this to Joe. I would be remiss to not point out the Tiny Hat Man reference in here, and I'm sure Joe would pick up on that, and he's still willing to throw his endorsement behind it. So speaking of Joe Rogan, we mentioned on Friday, someone dropped into the chat and said, hey, Peter Thiel was just on Joe Rogan, and I lost my mind for a minute. And then I had to go listen to it. So as I was driving up to Oklahoma City, I was listening to it, just ideas exploding out of my head. And when Jason from the 2-Bit podcast woke up and saw it, he immediately spazzed out and sat down to listen to it. Unfortunately, Jason is old, so he has to listen to everything on 1x. So I blew through it on 2x and then twiddled my thumbs waiting for a couple hours for him to finish it. And he didn't even get through the whole thing, and he was just scribbling notes, ideas spewing out of his head. Just both of us were wigging out. So we did an impromptu voice chat on the King Pill Discord where we discussed it. A whole bunch of people were in there, and we talked for probably 3 or 4 hours on that, and then a whole bunch of other things. I think Jason and I probably need to do a whole episode just breaking down all the different things that happen in this podcast. A lot of people have been very underwhelmed by it, which I understand. Like, I understand why the way Joe approached it was not how I would have approached it, and I found myself getting really annoyed, especially the last hour or so of the episode. It was just Joe steamrolling Thiel and just digging into all of his, I don't know, Joe Rogan curiosities, which it was kind of interesting to potentially hear what Peter Thiel might think about some of them. The construction of the pyramids and other such things, UFOs. And I think that Thiel's answers were interesting and kind of revelatory, but he also had somewhere he wanted to go. And by the time it finished, you could tell for the last 15 minutes, Joe was trying to rap. And Thiel just kept going. He looked like he was ready to go for another couple hours. And man, would I have loved to listen to another couple hours of it. But it's been great for the memes. This has been the biggest meme from it. So I'll play the original clip for it, and then there's been so many of them. I picked out my favorite one that I've seen so far, and I'll play that for you guys. So Joe says, you don't think climate science is a real science?
You don't feel that climate science is a real science? It is. Well, there's several different things one could say. You don't feel.
I think this is the one. Yeah, there's so many good replies. James Pulo, soon a whole language will develop made entirely of those 5 sounds and glottal stops. Oogie Boogie says, to be fair, I think he's always running through multiple drafts of what he wants to say, which doesn't lend itself well to interviews, but is clearly successful in his line of work. That nails it. Peter Thiel speaks as if his brain is on sentence 5 while his mouth is only halfway through sentence 1. That autism was probably followed by an eloquent dissertation of based real science, which, yes, I can confirm. We just witnessed bro divide 1 by 0. Peter is running on levels of autism rarely seen out in the wild. It's not real science, but everyone has to choose their words so fucking carefully in this stupid fucking society. For those of you who've watched it, I'll say this. You know that the context of this conversation here was they were talking about science, the state of science, and Peter was doing his usual riff about innovating in the space of bits and not atoms. And Peter made the quip that he often does, that if you have to append science to discipline, then that's a signal that it's not real science. So like social science or political science or and then Joe, he mentioned, I think Peter Thiel mentioned climate science as he was listing these off. He said climate science, all these things, and Joe went full journalist. He picked up on that, and you could tell that Peter was talking to him about it as, hey, we're a couple of buddies sitting here talking, and I know that we're on the same page, and I can just say this. But if you followed Peter Thiel for any length of time, he does not want to be in headlines. He's a very private person. When he comes out and he does interviews, listen. You have to listen because he's doing it for a reason. He's not happy about it. He doesn't enjoy it. He likes talking to people, but he doesn't like being in the public eye. He's a very, very private person. He literally, absolutely annihilated, salted the earth upon, pissed on the ground of Gawker when they aired out his private life. He's a very private person. And a lot of this is because, I'm not going to steal some of, I don't want to weigh in too much on this because Jason and I already talked about it, and I want to save some content for that conversation. And he made a couple observations that I want to let him make them. But suffice it to say, this is Thiel's presentation here is a feature, not a bug. The stuttering, the kind of working through multiple drafts before he says something. He's very, very careful about every single thing he says. So when he's sitting here stuttering, he is running through a whole bunch of different conversations, and he's having those conversations in his head really quickly. And then he's settling on the one that's actually worth having. So he thinks of a line of conversation. Here's what I would say. Here's what Joe would say. Here's what I would say. Here's what Joe would say. Don't want to go that route. Let's try this one. Don't want to go that route. Let's try this one. Okay, out of these three, let's take this one, and we'll run with that. And people who want to sit and they're like used to really well-spoken, fluent podcasters, yada, 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 yada. They're like, oh man, I can't even listen to this guy. But for me, like once I understand what's actually happening here, and I realize the value in listening to Peter Thiel when he talks, because he's so private, when he chooses to say things publicly, when he chooses to go on a major platform like Joe Rogan to talk about something, it's not because he just is like, oh yeah, someone asked me to do an interview and I'll go do an interview. No, he has something to say. He is sending signals. And I will say, at the very least, if nobody else on the internet did, Jason and I definitely picked up on those signals. So here's the best meme variation of that. My wife asking why I didn't do the dishes for the third night in a row. My only chore.
It is well, let me, there's several different things one could say. It's
after he does that, then he actually does go on and say the several different things. But it looked to me like Joe pounced on this one because kind of like Piers Morgan does when his ears perk up when he's like, oh, here's a great chance for a viral clip. Joe pounced on it. And I think Thiel was irritated. I think he was irritated that he decided to go that route. Like, seriously, we're going to have this conversation. There's so many other things we could talk about, and we're going to rehash this retarded conversation for the sake of like views and whatever. All right, fine. Let me figure out how I can say the thing where I retake control of the conversation as quickly as possible. I address it. I'm not going to get stuck in a headline where I just dodge the question altogether. You know, like this is the sort of thing he's running through in his head. So it's kind of a dirty move by Rogan. At the same time, as a fellow podcaster, I see Rogan's perspective on this as well. His job isn't necessarily to just softball it with him. He's gonna push him. He's gonna get a good quote out of him. And it turns out, you know, all works out in the end because now this has gone completely viral. And I guarantee you, there's been plenty of people who decided to go watch it because they saw the memes, who wouldn't have watched it otherwise. White pills and black pills. Okay, so then I've got a couple other clips from it. I got one standalone clip and then a thread of clips someone put together. I want to play these for you guys to give you a little tease, and then I encourage you to go watch the whole thing on your own. And then Jason and I will do a roundup conversation about it. So Peter Thiel with Joe Rogan diving into the madness of California.
You know, there's always sort of a right-wing or libertarian critique of California that, you know, it's such a ridiculous place. It should just collapse under its own ridiculousness. And it doesn't quite happen. The macroeconomics on it are pretty good. 40 million people, the GDP's around 4 trillion. It's about the same as Germany with 80 million or Japan with 125 million. Japan has 3 times the population of California. Same GDP means 1/3 the per capita GDP. So there's some level on which, California as a whole is working, even though it doesn't work from a governance point of view, it doesn't work for a lot of the people who live there. And the rough model I have for how to think of California is that it's kind of like Saudi Arabia. And you have a crazy religion, wokeism in California, Wahhabism in Saudi Arabia. Not that many people believe it, but it distorts everything. And then you have like oil fields in Saudi Arabia, and you have the big tech companies in California, and the oil pays for everything. And then you have a completely bloated, inefficient government sector, and you have sort of all sorts of distortions in the real estate market, where people also make lots of money, and sort of the government and real estate are ways you redistribute the oil wealth or the big tech money in California, and it's not the way you might want to design a system from scratch, but it's pretty stable. People have been saying Saudi Arabia is ridiculous. It's going to collapse any year now. They've been saying that for 40 or 50 years, but if you have a giant oil field, you can pay for a lot of ridiculousness. I think that's the way you have to think of California.
One of the things I'm going to have to borrow a little bit from the conversation Jason and I will have just to address this. One of the things that you'll notice about Peter is, one of the big things people hate about him is that he's Straussian, and he's not just Straussian in the way he writes; he's Straussian in the way he talks. He is very, very good. This is incredibly intentional. He is very, very good at making it very difficult to pin him down exactly. And this is a requirement for his career. The work that he does, it's very, very good if it's always kind of vague and ambiguous as to what exactly he believes. Where exactly does he stand? Where exactly is he trying to go? What exactly is he trying to accomplish? So when he comes out and he talks about this, you'll see this throughout the entire conversation. He steelmans every single position that he presents. But the mere fact that he even presents the alternative suggestion, like, hey, maybe California is actually a shithole. Maybe this isn't the way you would want to design a system. But he's honest about, the system is super corrupt and it's terrible for everyone there, and it's hard for me to stay living here, and I'm considering leaving. These are pretty strong statements. He's signaling where his actual mind is. If you can listen through it, you can understand that's where his actual mind is. But he's going to present the alternative perspective so that at all times we're actually we're not just diving down a rabbit hole of ideology and becoming wholly focused on a single variable and blinding ourselves to everything else at play. He's like, if you think California is just going to collapse under its own weight, you might be waiting for a while. Because the nature of this system is one that, even if it is terrible for everyone involved, it's still going to sustain itself because of all the different variables that he laid out. All right, there's more that I want to say, but I want to make sure that I save some stuff for when Jason and I talk about this, because I also don't want to step on his toes on a lot of this. Taylor Brown says, wouldn't it be great if Thiel and the boys could flip California back into red territory? I think if I remember right, there are more registered Republicans in California than any other state, or at least close. They're way up there, which is it's a function of the sheer population. But California is really like two different countries in one country that masquerades as a state. It is as an American state. There's a really big split between urban and rural. If you go out into the rural, and you don't even have to get super rural, like Inland Empire, Riverside. We moved from Riverside County. We were in Redlands. We moved from Redlands to San Antonio, and the culture is hardly different. We probably saw more Trump paraphernalia in Riverside County than we do in the heart of Texas. Once you get out of the blue areas of California, it gets very red very quickly. They're just completely dominated by the supremely corrupt governments in the blue cities. But I don't think that it would take very much. I think if a sufficient elite cohort decided that they wanted to flip California, I think that they could. It wouldn't be that difficult. When I got up to Oklahoma City to meet up and pick up my little sister, our cousin had driven her down, and they were staying at her boyfriend's house with his family. And I pulled in the Tesla, and the boyfriend's dad, good old boy, came walking out. He's like, he's got, tractors and stuff all over, and he comes out and he's like, what are you doing driving that yuppie mobile up on my property? And I laughed. We started chatting, and I told him about what, how cheap it was to drive, how much fun it was, how fast it was, and he was like, "Oh, that's pretty interesting." He was much more open to the idea of a Tesla after I talked to him, I think. But then we started talking, and it turns out he was from Riverside County originally. He drove truck out of Riverside for a while, and he said that he just had to get out of there. And I was like, "Yeah, we did too." And then I told him that we were going to be taking California back from the communists, and his eyes lit up, and he was like, "Oh yeah." And we started talking about the election, and I said something about voting, and he was like, "Oh man, don't get me started on that." It was just instant alignment. And here I am, I've got my shorts and my flip flops and the man bun and the big old beard, driving in a Tesla, and I start talking about kicking communists out of California, and I made a very quick friend. Vorpal Anvil says, recently visited family east of the Bay Area near Stockton. It was all taken over by Mexicans. Was majority white in the 90s. Yep. Yeah, they come in for the agricultural work, and then they stay. Another really good conversation, actually, that you just reminded me of was between Mike Rowe and Victor Davis Hanson on Mike Rowe's podcast within the last week or so. It's very boomer. Victor Davis Hanson is about as boomer as you can get, but even he's being pushed over the edge now. And they had a pretty honest conversation about race and immigration, as honest as you could get out of basically a couple of boomers. Love Mike Rowe. It's pretty clear that Mike Rowe is more radicalized than Victor Davis Hanson, but Victor Davis Hanson is well on his way. Politically Catholic says, actually, he's responding to something Taylor Brown said. Taylor Brown said, oh, no, he's responding to something Political Catholic said. Okay, so Andrew says he either wants to make another California or he wants to reconquer California. Both are fights. Yeah, very good point. And Taylor says that's why mass deportations can happen. And Andrew says, precisely, I haven't spoken to Matt or Jason about this, but I got 2 hours through it and came away thinking Thiel was preparing for war. Yes, you haven't talked to us about it, but that was exactly our takeaway as well. The way that I took his commentary on California, he talked at the beginning, it wasn't in this clip I just played, but at the beginning of that segment, he said he's been looking at the possibility of where he might move to, and he's like, here's the downsides with everywhere. And again, reading through the Straussian communication style that Thiel has, I took this as a threat. This was you've made it so I don't want to live in California, and I want to live in California. I don't want to go anywhere else. I want to stay here. And if you're going to make it intolerable for me to stay here, then I'm going to take California away from you. That was the way that I read it, in the way that only Peter Thiel could deliver that message. His talk about the macro factors underlying Cali and the Detroit example sounded like an enumeration of targets to me. Yes. He compared California to Detroit and what happened with the auto industry, tying it into outsourcing and manufacturing. Taylor says if they can take back California, they can basically take over the entire shindig. Texas, Florida, and California. Yeah, I mean, that would be very true. I don't think they're going to take over California in this election cycle, but I don't think that I don't like the idea of just leaving California to fall off into the ocean, because I don't know. It seems cucked to me. Oh, they took the most beautiful state in the union. I guess we just gotta let them have it. No, fuck that. We're taking California back. It's going to take a while, but we're going to take it back. It hasn't been a blue state for very long. It can be taken back relatively easily. It just requires the will and the financing. And it seems that the will and the financing is beginning to show up on the scene. So it's a matter of the extent to which they can rally support. Okay, so I got another thread here, some other comments that he made. Peter Thiel, co-founder of PayPal and Palantir and an early Facebook investor, appeared on the Joe Rogan Experience, and the conversation is receiving a lot of attention. Here's some highlights from the pod. 3.6 million views. Digital nomad, passport profit. Let me see this guy. American living in South America, entrepreneur. Never trust a man who has not a single redeemable vice. Got a 1 to 10 follower following ratio. I'll give this guy a follow. America's political crossroads. Thiel expresses serious concerns about the U.S. and contemplates the possibility of moving out due to what he sees as its ongoing decline.
I keep the extreme thing I keep saying, and again, I have to keep in mind talk as a substitute for action. The extreme thing I keep saying is I can't decide whether to leave the state or the country.
Oh boy!
And
if you went out of the country, where would you go?
Man, it's tough to find places because there are a lot of problems in the U.S. and most places are doing so much worse.
Yeah,
so
it's not a good move to leave here.
But
as fucked up as this place is.
But I keep thinking I shouldn't move twice. So I can't decide whether I should move to Florida or should move to New Zealand or Costa Rica or something like that.
Yeah. Go full John McAfee.
And so but can't decide between those two. So I keep.
There's some retard in the comments on the original video on YouTube, which just I know. Don't read the YouTube comments. He's like, New Zealand. Does he have any idea what New Zealand was like during COVID? Like, dude, he's Peter Thiel. If he moved to New Zealand, he's not going to have to be concerned about COVID shit. It's not going to be imposed upon him. He's going to move to New Zealand. He's going to buy like 5,000 acres, and he's going to live on his own little compound. The New Zealand government is going to be eager to impress him and please him and bring his economic weight into the country. If you're some random spurg commenting on YouTube thinking that you understand geopolitical intrigue and implications better than Peter Thiel, you're not going to make it. This isn't just because I respect and admire Peter Thiel. This is because objectively, there's no way you could tell a story about Peter Thiel without recognizing that Peter Thiel's not deciding on COVID restrictions or vax requirements or something when he's deciding where he's going to live, except adjacently. This one we already listed to, California and Saudi Arabia. Stagnation or breakthroughs. While optimistic about tech's potential, Thiel warns that stagnation is real. He emphasizes that sectors like AI and space exploration are key, but require a shift in how we fund and approach innovation.
So often been on the side that there isn't that much progress in science or tech, or not as much as Silicon Valley likes to claim. And even on the AI level, I think it's a massive technical achievement. It's still an open question. Is it actually going to lead to much higher living standards for everybody? The internet was a massive achievement. How much did it raise people's living standards? Much trickier question. But in this world where not much has happened, one of the paradoxes of an era of relative tech stagnation is that when something does happen, we don't even know how to process it. So I think Bitcoin was it was a big invention. We can debate whether it was good or bad, but it was a pretty big deal, and it was systematically underestimated for at least the first 10, 11 years. And you could trade it. It went up smoothly for 10, 11 years. It didn't get repriced all at once because we're in a world where nothing big ever happens, and so we have no way of processing it when something pretty big happens. The internet was pretty big in '99. Bitcoin was moderately big. The internet was really big. Bitcoin was moderately big, and I'd say passing the Turing test is really big. It's on the same scale as the internet. So
one of the things that he did talk about was that by any measure of evaluation, ChatGPT has already passed the Turing test, which I think is an interesting observation for him to make. And it's funny. So you might say Peter Thiel came out on the nothing ever happened side of the equation. And knowing Peter Thiel, he would give you an argument for why nothing ever happens and also why everything happens. And that's kind of the point he's making here, is that there are lots of things happening, but there's also nothing happening. And so our ability to gauge what is and isn't happening is broken. Something like Bitcoin happening is a big happening, but it doesn't really register on most people's radars because people don't even know how to evaluate what a happening actually is. We live in a world where nothing ever happens. We're at the end of history. We've reached the mountaintop of human innovation and creativity and accomplishment and technological progress and yada yada yada. And he's like, no, there's a whole lot more, but something's going to have to change in our ability to recognize those things and in actually having things happen in not unidimensionally just in the world of bits. Things need to start happening in the world of atoms as well, because that's the thing that people can really grasp. Like when you launch rockets into the sky, that makes an impact on people more than Bitcoin does, even if Bitcoin is a more powerful technology, because this is just how we are as humans. The Epstein conversation was very interesting, and I haven't watched a lot of. I've been mostly away from the internet over the last weekend since this dropped, so I haven't seen a lot of the response from it. But as I was listening to it, I was like, "Oh man, I'm gonna be hearing about this forever now," because people are gonna be really, they're not gonna be happy about some of the stuff they perceived him saying with the Epstein stuff. This is something we'll get into a lot more with Jason. I'll save my comments on that for now, but there were some very strong signals that he sent in this, beginning with the fact that he is the one who brought up the Epstein conversation.
Part of it, I suspect there are a lot of other questions that, one should also
most
ask.
certainly.
So
but I would think that is one of the best motivators that we have, is having dirt on people like that, especially something that could ruin your career, especially people that are deeply embedded in this system of people knowing things about people and using those at their advantage. I mean, that's an age-old strategy in politics. That was J. Edgar Hoover's entire modus operandi.
Yeah, look, my riff on it was always that it's a little bit different from the J. Edgar Hoover thing, and the question was always whether the people doing it knew they were getting compromised. And so it's the vibe is not that you somehow got compromised. It was more you were joining this secret club.
Right.
You got to be made.
Yes.
You're a made man in the mafia,
and you get to do crazy things.
No. It's only if we have compromise on you do you get ahead.
Right.
It's like I don't know. It's one of these
skull and bones
closet.
type thing.
Yeah. I have so many things I want to say, but that opens a whole big can of worms. This conversation's about Bill Gates. That whole thing, that'll dominate a lot of the conversation with Jason, so I'm going to save my thoughts on that. Thiel's nuclear theory. Thiel provides a theory surrounding India's creation of nuclear weapons in 1974. The United States transferred the nuclear reactor technology, hoping to provide blueprints for cheaper energy, only to find out the tech had been weaponized.
My alternate theory on why nuclear energy really stopped is that it was sort of dystopian or even apocalyptic, because it turned out that it was all it turned out to be very dual use. If you build nuclear power plants, it's only sort of one step away from building nuclear weapons, and it turned out to be a lot trickier to separate those two things out than it looked. And I think the signature moment was 1974 or 75 when India gets the nuclear bomb. And the U.S., I believe, had transferred the nuclear reactor technology to India. We thought they couldn't weaponize it. And then it turned out it was pretty easy to weaponize. And then sort of the geopolitical problem with nuclear power was you either, you need a double standard where we have nuclear power in the U.S., but we don't allow other countries to have nuclear power because the U.S. gets to keep its nuclear weapons. We don't let 100 other countries have nuclear weapons, and that's an extreme double standard, probably a little bit hard to justify. Or you need some kind of really effective global governance where you have a one world government that regulates all this stuff, which doesn't sound that good either.
Andrew says, what do you want to bet that the owner of Palantir knows who's on Epstein's lists? Yes. And the secretive clubs. Yes. Uh-huh. Someone else pointed out, they said that he he stuttered through a lot of his answers. And then when Joe asked him who introduced him to Epstein, without stuttering, he said, Reid Hoffman. Hoffman just immediately got tossed under the bus. With the nuclear thing, he's the larger conversation here was talking about like alternative energy and then bringing up the nuclear conversation. And I hadn't heard this particular theory before. And also knowing the way that he talks and thinks, it's not necessarily saying that this is the thing, but this is the thing that nobody's talking about. And if nobody's talking about it, then it's going to govern us without us knowing. And then when he talks about the double standard, he's talking about the political implications of trying to maintain a double standard like that. It's going to be very difficult if you're trying to maintain this one world government control of everything, but we're also going to have this double standard. Like these two things are working against each other. Honesty is not happening. We're not dealing with reality. It's a system that's built upon lies, so it's going to fracture and break down, and it's going to prohibit the ability to actually innovate in some of these major areas. This is a recurring theme with Peter, is the necessity that so much of the conflict and strife and corruption and everything is happening because of artificial scarcity that doesn't have to be there. Like, it's not that there's no scarcity, it's that this is artificial scarcity that's being inhibited, or it's being created and it's inhibiting us from innovating across these various different sectors that are going to be necessary in order for us to maintain any standard of growth. And if we're not maintaining a standard of growth, if things are starting to fall back, then that's going to bring with it famine and war and strife, which may be necessary. But if we want to be able to navigate our way through the famine and the war and the strife effectively, then we're also going to need to deal with the world honestly, as it is. Peter Thiel, Archbishop of the New Age of Neo-Feudalism. I like it. Okay, so now I forgot to sort these different headlines here into categories. I think these are, let's pull this one up here. Got some stuff on the DNC and election stuff. First of all, I'm going to read this thread, and then, okay, I think that's roughly in order. So Cynical Publius posted this a couple days ago, and I'm glad he did, because I was thinking about doing something similar. He says, okay, Team Eddie, you smoke them if you got them, and listen up. The DNC starts tomorrow, and it will run all week. You need to understand that you're about to have a massive psyop pointed straight at you. You are the specific and deliberate target of this psyop. All week, you will hear the major media telling you how gloriously spectacular and joyful the Kamala and the coach ticket is. The headlines will be hyperbolic to an insane level, gushing at the Hollywood star level of Harris and the incredible likability of Walz. Harris will be treated as a newcomer on the scene, as if she never existed the past 4 years. Walz's immensely negative and vast amount of baggage will be ignored. Every other DNC speaker will be a messenger of joy and hope and saving America. Massive lies will be told about Trump and Vance, and literally no one in the media will call those lies out. Instead, they will be reinforced. At the end of the week, polls will come out showing Harris with a significant lead over Trump. Meanwhile, your X feed will be flooded with pessimistic messages from doomsters assuring you that we cannot win no matter what because the Democrats will steal the election anyways. More on that in a little bit. Many of those doomsters will be false flag Democrat bots pretending to be MAGAs, just so you know. Either that, or they, even worse than being false flag Democrat bots, they'll just be retarded doomsters that aren't even smart enough to get paid for their dooming. All of this is tightly coordinated inside the Democrat and media complex and will be executed under a detailed O plan that was written at the very highest level. The purpose of all of this is to break your spirit, to break your morale, to get you to stay at home and not vote because all is lost, and to get you to spread your despair and hopelessness with your friends, family, neighbors, and coworkers. Do not let them achieve their objective. Fight and defeat the enemy with constantly uplifting and positive pro-MAGA messaging. Gleefully mock the ignorance and perfidy of the Democrats and their media lackeys at every turn. Be funny, be bold, be happy, be of good cheer. Be steadfastly loyal to our nation and our Constitution, and don't let the Dems state a single lie without calling them on it. Suppress your fear, as fear is the mind killer. Remind everyone you come in contact with that every problem America has today is due to what Kamala Harris did and did not do over the past 4 years. Remind them that Walz is a coward and a liar and is probably a Marxist Chinese agent. Be steely-eyed message men and message women, to steal a phrase from NASA's heyday. Look, these news reports, these polls, these DNC bots, their messages are all designed to be self-fulfilling. Hyperstition. They have no substance unless you allow them to have substance. Show them no quarter, take no prisoners. Fight. Get in the dirt and fight. Tell everyone who you come in contact with the truth, loudly and constantly. Volunteer with your local GOP committee. Don't sit back. Act. Oh, and one more thing. Just as their messaging is self-fulfilling if you believe it, your message is self-fulfilling if they believe it. Be relentless in that fight. Do I make myself clear? Okay, fall in. We have a fight to go win, and we will. There are so many signals throughout this entire tweet as to the age demographic that Cynical Publius hails from. I would say first and foremost is the double spacing. And then another one would be the being loyal to our nation and our Constitution. I'm not going to beef at him, though. I love the energy. The energy is fantastic. Let our boomers redeem themselves. Let them redeem themselves through us. We owe them our respect and our support. And listen to the man. He is exactly correct, particularly right here. Just as their message is self-fulfilling if you believe it, your messaging is self-fulfilling if they believe it. All right, so Don Lemon went to New Jersey to go talk to voters. I'm going to subject you guys to some Don Lemon. Believe me, it'll be worthwhile.
We're here in Jersey, Atlantic City. Who do you support?
I plead the fifth.
Trump for the win.
Tell me why.
I can't really call that right now, but I just feel like she's not good for president. She's good vice, but not for the actual lead role for the country.
Does it have anything to do with being a woman?
No. No, because I feel like women, nah, you're not going to give me that.
Your money's on her.
Yeah.
Who do you want?
Trump.
Why don't you like Harris?
She doesn't have any experience.
She's the vice president. She's a senator.
Yeah, no experience. No. She had no experience.
Well, I want Donald Trump. I just feel we need somebody that has a stronger background with the military and the world in general.
She was a prosecutor and an attorney general and a senator and a vice president. You're in a gambling town. Who's your money on?
I'm going to support the Democratic Party, but, I mean, Trump looked like he got it in the bag right now.
4 years ago, it was a lot better. I made a lot more money than I do now.
I know you feel that way, but that's not actually what the record shows. The economy is actually better under Biden. No, I'm serious. That's what the facts show.
Okay, you know what?
No, that's not because I watch CNN. Trump or Harris? Trump. That's who's going to win. That's who's going to win. Who are you? Because I watch CNN. Trump or
I really want to know what she was about to say here. She grabs the mic from him.
That's what the facts show.
CNN?
Okay, you know what?
No, that's not because I watch CNN. Trump or Harris?
Trump.
That's who's going to win.
That's who's going to win.
Who you support?
I support Trump. All the people that came to this country legally, it's not fair that they're letting all 10,000 to 15,000 people or 20,000 people here illegally. Have you seen San Diego? Yeah. They're coming off the boats, off the water right here, off the ocean. Did you know Biden was flying them in? Did you know Biden was flying them in? You didn't know that?
What do you Canadians think about what's going on here?
We think you're all nuts. We're just watching from afar and just enjoying the show.
I got to get out of Atlantic City. Where are we going to next?
This is very interesting to me that Don Lemon would produce this. Obviously, he went and interviewed a whole bunch of people, and he picked out the pro-Trump people. I think the reason he picked them out, the reason he picked the ones that he did, was because he's trying to, in his mind, what he's doing is showing how these Trump people are all so dumb and low class. He picks the crazy-looking black guy or the clip of the black guy who he presses him on, do you not want her just because she's a woman, and obviously that it's because she's a woman, but the guy's like, no, you're not going to get me on camera with that. I'm not going to have you ruin my life. So he's coming out here trying to humiliate Trump voters, but all that he's doing is just showing that even in New Jersey, Presumably, these are the people he presented. So even in New Jersey, he can't find anybody who's going to vote for Harris or who supports Harris. Every single person that he finds is someone who either thinks Trump is going to win and or wants Trump to win. So I struggle to know exactly what to think of Don Lemon. Like, is he self-aware in what he's doing? Like, does he know? He actually kind of wants the Trump administration because it's going to be good for him. It's going to be good for business. This whole thing's just kind of a game to him. So he knows the marketing effect that will be brought about by him publishing a video increasing Trump's appeal. Or is he just retarded? I don't know. It's kind of I'm torn. How much is Don Lemon playing a character on TV that diverges from his actual personality, and how much is this him being authentic? I suppose it'll be an open question. Here was one of the last Harris Walz rallies. Jack Posobiec tweeted this out. Look at this. This was the rally that they put together. This is what happens when they don't have Megan Thee Stallion opening for him. Half the people in the room are media. They take up literally half the room, and they've got this very close, tight shot. They could fill in the bleachers behind them and just publish. Like the whole purpose of this here is to create a bunch of content to publish online, to push out on TikTok and Twitter and whatever else. That's the purpose of this. So they don't need to be able to pan the crowd and do all this sort of stuff because this isn't a TV presentation. This is being produced for the internet. From that, you can conclude something about the people who are running it, and also just about this is where we are now. TV is dying. It's all social media. We have two social media presidencies now. Social media presidency for the Republicans, which it has been for 8 years. Social media presidency for the Democrats now. They're campaigning on social media. Everything they're doing is for the sake of social media. So there was, of course, at the DNC, they have to have their Democratic National Convention land acknowledgement. The Democratic National Committee wishes to acknowledge that we gather together to state our values on lands that have been stewarded through many centuries by the ancestors and descendants of tribal nations who have been here since time immemorial. They can't even be called Native Americans anymore because nothing American can be good. Now they have to be tribal nations. We honor the communities native to this content and recognize that our country was built on indigenous homelands. We pay our respects to the millions of indigenous people throughout history who have protected our lands, waters, and animals. The first time that I ever heard of this phrase, indigenous people or indigenous peoples, indigenous homelands, was when I went to Canada. I went to high school in Canada, and that's how they talked about them up there, the indigenous peoples. And then they do it in Australia as well. This is not an American way of speaking. This is outside America, but within the West. Those are the only people who talk this way. While we meet in Chicago, we also recognize and honor the traditional homelands of the Anishinaabe, also known as the Council of the Three Fires, the Ojibwe, the Ottawa, and the Potawatomi nations. Blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to keep reading all this. Boniface option says, make America great again versus America should never have existed. If the Trump campaign's listening, here's your messaging right here. One side wants to make America great again. One side says America should have never existed. It couldn't get more stark than that. The official DNC platform. This is great. The official DNC platform has been released, and it makes at least 5 mentions of Biden's second term. Tough look for the Democrat copy editors. So, any doubts that this was actually some sort of a coup? No. It was just a peaceful transfer of power. Everyone was behind it. It was completely coordinated. Yeah. Apparently, the DNC copywriters, when they wrote all the copy for all of this, they weren't prepared for Joe Biden to no longer be the nominee. In a second Biden term, we will make that Navigator program permanent and include new lenders, new markets, and fairer taxes. In President Biden's second term, he'll push Congress to blah, 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 blah. During President Biden's second term, Democrats will continue to advocate for the blah, blah, blah. In President Biden's second term, he'll continue selecting judges, blah, blah, blah. In President Biden's second term, you'll push Congress to pass legislation that is consistent with our values as a nation. Legislation must secure the border, reform the asylum system, expand legal immigration, and keep families together by supporting a pathway for long-term blah, 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 blah. Now they're actually running on securing the border. They're being forced to actually have to pay lip service to this, even if they don't actually intend to. Still more evidence that they're just reacting. And then the most important clip that came out of the DNC last night, I was not going to watch it. I had a freaking headache. Felt like I'd been punched in the jaw. There was no way I was going to sit down and subject myself to this. But fortunately for me, my boys on Twitter got me. And Joe Biden came out and made a speech, and it was very profound.
In 2008, we met while working on the Obama-Biden campaign. In 2008, we met while working on the Obama-Biden campaign.
He's sitting here like, I really gotta take a shit. Get me off the stage. She stands up. In 2008, we met on the Obama campaign. This is some Helen Keller shit right here. You want to know how the Helen Keller thing happened? Just like this. Oh, man. I can't believe that they give us this this meme content. Yes, both and. They really did that. This was not dubbed over. This is the actual video. They actually want you to believe that he came out and went, and then she translated for him. The dude's sitting there like he can't even move. They dragged him out there. He's like, I don't want to be here. You're putting words in my mouth. Stephen Hawking of the DNC. Yeah, why doesn't this guy have the Stephen Hawking thing? I think this guy needs some Neuralink. That's what it looks like to me. Okay. Couple of election-related reports here. I got a whole bunch of headlines from Leading Report. First of all, breaking, Georgia Election Board has voted to mandate election workers to compare the total number of ballots cast with the total number of unique voter ID numbers in the system. Another one. Oops, that's actually the same one. This is the other one. Just in, a Pennsylvania judge has ruled incomplete mail ballots without required secrecy envelopes will not be counted this November. There's a steady drumbeat that's happening. Nobody wants to, your resident doomers and black pillars won't tell you about this, but there has been a steady drumbeat. We've been covering it on here for weeks now. The lawfare is making its way through the courts. They've been working on it for 4 years. This is a new RNC. I'm not saying stake all your hopes on it. I'm not saying there's going to be no election fortification. I'm saying that there's a steady drumbeat of people who are actually fighting back against the election fortification. They don't need to be fully successful. The whole purpose of all of this isn't, oh, well, we're just going to get a bunch of judges to pass some rulings and magically the election's going to be legitimate. No, this is infrastructure. This is legal precedent. This is a steady drumbeat of consistent stories dropping, showing this effort happening over and over and over again. I'm on the record saying I believe we're going to get a redux of 2000, the 2000 election. I believe this election is going to ultimately be decided through the courts. And the only way that it will possibly, that will possibly work in our favor will be if we have this steady drumbeat and we have the marketing campaign that's on the roll, pressing forward and maintaining this consistent, steady messaging that creates a platform for larger voices to emphasize and focus on. And it means we've got the poll watchers, you've got the lawyers, you've got all the different ground game people that are necessary to ensure that there's a fight. That's all there has to be. A legal fight. I should be very clear to my YouTube overlords. There needs to be a legal fight over this election. As long as there is a legal fight in place, things can proceed as foreseen. Report from Election Wizard. On Sunday, President Trump's election integrity team trained in one day nearly 7,000 election integrity volunteers in targeted states. Now, 7,000 may sound like a lot. It's actually not very many. 7,000 will cover like a few districts, but this was in one day. At this point now, I haven't explicitly kept track of everything. I should have created a folder and just dropped every little thing in there. It's too late now. But there's been collectively probably 500,000 people that I've seen reported that have been trained. And this number is continuing to grow. You've got TPUSA, you've got Scott Pressler. Several of these different organizations are actually working on building up a legitimate Republican ground game. Now, if you want to black pill about it, and you can say, you want to move the goalposts from, oh, they don't have a ground game, they're not actually doing anything, this is low energy, yada, yada, yada. You want to now say, oh, well, it's not enough. They're not doing enough. They're never going to do enough. All right, fine. You dedicate your energy to manifesting the worst things possible, ensuring that no matter what, you never win, and you will continue to lose. You will define yourself as a loser. I don't want to associate with losers. So if you want to try to manifest all of these bad things because you value being right more than you do the future wealth and prosperity of the country, you do you. But you're not allowed around me. I will be blocking you. You will not be permitted within any of the King Pill communities, within any of the King Pill chats. You're toxic. You're a toxic poison here to suck the masculine vril energy from us. And we're not going to allow it. All right. Last couple stories here. Andrew says, Matt, it's a lot when you consider that the Democrats' fortification team is probably only a few thousand and limited to a handful of districts in each state. I think, if I remember right, I think their team is actually pretty robust. I think the Democrat operation, or at least it was in the past. I don't know if the same will is going to be there. I don't know if they're going to have the same coordination, same organization. They're not going to lack for funds. They're going to have more than enough money. If you go watch a video. Maybe I need to do a reaction to that. The Blaze, Glenn Beck, a couple of years ago, did a video on Arabella Advisors, which was referenced in the Pirate Wires article we read a couple weeks ago. The sheer volume of dollars that's getting funneled into all these different initiatives is astronomical. They're never going to hurt for money. What they are going to hurt for is competence and coordination, because the regime is having to herd cats at this point, and they're having to herd cats with incompetent cat herders, which gives us a great opportunity to step in. Unless they're just going to openly cheat. I would not put it past them to just openly cheat. I think that they're at that point where they're operating under the presumption that they can openly cheat and just get away with it. And that bluff is going to have to be called. That's the essence of my prediction. Josh Ham, winning is more important than being right. Focus on winning. Indeed. So, decidedly non-political talk here. I've highlighted this guy in the past, Chris Kerner, mobile home park guy, at MHP_guy on Twitter. I love these threads that he does periodically, talking about clever ways that people can make money off the beaten path. He says, I revisit this incredible Reddit post every month or so. Below are my 8 favorite answers of boring and unique businesses that print money. So someone on Reddit said, who knows someone with a boring business that is killing it? What do they do? So here's some ideas. I'm going to put these out here, hopefully for those of you who are looking, maybe you're dissatisfied with where you're at right now and you're looking for something you can invest yourself into and start building your own company. Maybe one of these will give you some inspiration. Whether it's doing this exactly or something adjacent to it, hopefully I'll spark some creativity for you guys. So boring job number 1, kind of a double entendre here. Specialized concrete hole cutting and x-rays. The higher the percentage of people that never knew this business existed equals the higher probability that this business needs more competitors. So the person on Reddit said, I knew a guy who had a company that specialized in cutting holes in concrete. He'd bought a very highly specialized machine that cut perfect holes of all sizes in concrete for all sorts of situations. I never even knew that that could have been a thing and possibly wouldn't have ever been exposed to it if it wasn't for the fact that he had an office next door to mine. That was all that his company did. They were called into locations, buildings, construction sites, etc., and shown where the holes to be drilled, and that was it. Simple and no fuss. For my totally inexperienced view, I don't think it was as simple as that. It just seemed so mundane to me at the time. Oh, what do you do? I drill holes in concrete. But I know they did extremely well indeed, and in retrospect, I would trade my world for his in a heartbeat. Another guy says, I know a guy with a very similar business who makes good money doing even less work than that. He takes x-rays of concrete. Basically bought a specialized machine that scans and x-rays the concrete and shows if there are any cables, pipes, etc. If the results are good, then they call the guy you know to come out and cut the holes. In many jurisdictions, building regulations, I don't know what this is supposed to say. Building regulations make it a requirement to scan before the core drilling, so his business is always in demand. Obviously, both of these things would require you to be able to get one of these very highly specialized machines. Who knows how much they are? 20,000, 50,000, 100,000? I have no idea. But if you had access to something like this, then you just need to find somebody who will front the cost for you. Maybe you don't have the 50 grand to drop on it. Do you know someone who has 50 grand? Maybe they're planning on taking that 50 grand and putting it, I don't know, in the stock market or buying real estate or something like that. And you could go make a case to them that they should instead buy this machinery for you, and you give them some percentage of your revenue until you've paid it off. And if you can't find that person, just start talking to every single person you know. Say, hey, I have a business startup idea, looking for somebody to invest. If you do this to every single person you know, I guarantee you're going to find people who have money that they'd be willing to invest in someone who's a go-getter, who actually looks like they really mean business. They can put together a good business plan. You'll find someone. Mailbox replacement services. This one's brilliant. This one is absolutely brilliant. Now, it'll only work in more like suburban or rural areas where you still have mailboxes. But if you're in one of those areas, this would be very low startup costs. Your customers are freely advertising themselves out by the road. A couple organic Facebook Marketplace posts per week should keep you busy. A couple years ago, a snowplow clipped my mailbox, and since then, the mailbox was basically falling out of the ground, and I had no time to fix it. This guy posted on a local Facebook group for mailbox replacement services. He offers a few options that range in price, comes out and replaces your mailbox and post in a couple hours. I hired him myself. He did a much better job than I would have done. Judging from his Facebook post, he has no shortage of customers. And marketing would be super easy. Just drive around looking for shitty mailboxes that are on their last leg, and there are many, and stick a flyer right on the post. Ain't no better time for a homeowner to consider using a mailbox replacement company than when they're standing right in front of their shitty mailbox. This guy says, my friend's dad from high school did this. He had a small wood shop behind his house, and he would cut 4x4 cedar posts all day during the week and hand paint designs on the mailboxes. On the weekends, he would load up the bed of his pickup with mailboxes and Quikrete and a post hole digger. He drove around neighborhoods looking for crappy mailboxes, talked to the owners, let them pick out their design, and he'd add numbers or last name and install it on the spot. He would even haul away the old mailbox and post. He got to know local postal carriers, and they'd let him know about problem mailboxes. He always sold out of the mailboxes he made during the week and drove a brand new full-size truck with sprayed bed liner, supported a nice home and a family of 3. He always joked that he only worked 2 days a week, the days he was hustling. $1.5 million per month of aquarium sales. My brother sells aquariums. His sales exceeded $1.5 million last month. This year will be a $10 million gross revenue year for him. I do not know his EBITDA, but I know it's been quite healthy since COVID. He does a lot better than me and has no education debt, and he didn't spend 10 years of postgraduate training to get where he is. Don't worry, though. I'm going to kick him in the balls next time I see him. So I'd imagine this is probably some sort of doctor or something like that who's getting his ass kicked by his brother selling aquariums. Compliance paperwork for large chemical companies. The richest guy I know with confirmed assets well over $30 million, I've seen the statements, owns a small consulting firm which does compliance paperwork for large chemical companies. I'm not going to get too specific because I don't want to reveal who it is, but all he does is paperwork and inspections to help large chemical companies comply with massive quantities of federal security rules. He grosses about $5 million a year and keeps $3.5 million of that right into his pocket. This goes on year after year after year. The secret is that he's a very small firm that is billing very giant companies. He can easily send an invoice for $300,000, and that's the smallest invoice that will wind up on the controller's desk that month. Nobody even bothers to question because it's crumbs for the major corporations that he works for, and ultimately it's just nobody's money. He could tell you all kinds of reasons, but basically he just got hit by a freakish lightning bolt of entrepreneurial success guy. Looks at one of the main characters from Revenge of the Nerds. I doubt that he ever even got a date until he was well into his 20s. He demonstrated admirable initiative and some bravery getting it started, but after that, it's just been an unbelievable bonanza that goes on year after year. He just makes up whatever price he wants, and it doesn't matter. He has no competition. It's just a weird niche. Nobody thought of it. This fella's life is like an episode of The Twilight Zone. Very boring job. It's like pulling teeth, but the dude is raking it in. If you've got the initiative and the willingness to do something really, really boring like this, you can make incredible money. Especially for our guys who understand really clearly just how bogged down in bureaucracy and corruption and how much money is flowing through some of these companies. Just find the boring thing that they don't want to do. Do a little research on the industry, find out who your competitors are, and then just brand yourself to be better than them. And you too can rack up massive invoices. Livestock transport. I met a couple who move livestock across country. They do very well. They contract to pick up and deliver, small rig, but they move racehorses, exotic animals, etc., and some farm animals. They plan routes and pick up drop-off on the way to keep the rig full. They stay busy and like to travel. They have the animal husbandry skills to make this successful. Again, a field that's not highly competitive that folks will pay well for. If you're someone who has like exotic animals or racehorses or something and you need to move them and you don't have a solution immediately available, you are going to have to pay. And you're going to be willing to pay a pretty penny to make it happen. Providing washers and dryers to apartments for free. They get paid by keeping all the quarters. Know a guy who supplies washers and dryers to large apartment blocks. The business model is the washer and dryer is free, but they take all the money inserted into the machines by the tenants. The building pays the electricity. They became so successful that they got their pilot's license, bought a light airplane so they can make any meeting in the U.S. within one day. Before, they'd buy airline tickets, and that became expensive and time-consuming traveling through airports. They service all over the U.S. and now have their own truck fleet delivering and servicing all the units. Smart people and have very low overheads and is a recession-proof business. This would be it'd be so easy to get into something like this. Such little startup costs. You basically have to be able to buy a washer and dryer. If you can buy one washer and dryer, get it installed there, and then just keep all of the money that comes through it. You're not going to get a ton at first, but it's going to be steady and consistent. You're always going to have, in these apartment complexes, every single week, you're going to have money that comes through it because people are going to have to wash their laundry. And if you've picked the right apartment complexes, they're going to have to use your thing and give you the money for it. And a washer and dryer is going to last, especially if you get the right ones, they're going to last for years. So you're not going to have a ton of startup costs. Selling clean water in a rural area with unsafe drinking water. My family friend quit his banking job and moved to a small town in the middle of nowhere. When he got bored of doing nothing, he started a water shop that just did refills and small orders here and there. The infrastructure in my country started falling apart recently, and now something like 46% of municipalities don't have safe drinking water. When it became public knowledge that the water in his area is unsafe to drink, his business started to boom. He scaled up his business and is doing better than he ever did at his banking job. More and more stories like this are going to show up. If you understand, if you recognize that the infrastructure is collapsing, that means there's an abundance of opportunities. This is the difference between the black pillar and the white pillar. The black pillar says the infrastructure is going to collapse. It sucks so much. I got to hunker down and fire off tweets complaining about how bad everything is. The white pillar says, look at all this frickin' opportunity. If the infrastructure is collapsing, there's tons of opportunities for me to come in and carve off a little slice of absolutely massive industries. The utilities, public construction, all these things are massive. There's going to have to be money spent on these things. So if you could carve off a little slice of that for yourself, it just takes a little bit of an ingenuity and a little bit of startup cost, which again, you can get covered if you're willing to talk to people. You cleverly structure a business proposal to them that they invest and it works out for both of you guys. And then you just got to have some know-how. And you can learn all of this online. You can network online. You can market online. You can advertise online. You can research online. All the information you could possibly ever want is going to be available for you online. You just have to dedicate yourself to actually finding it. Whit says middleman for raw milk. That's what my wife does. Every week. We have, this will obviously only work in some states, but we have a farm that we get our raw milk from, and it's a couple hours outside the city. So the milk agent comes into the city and has a drop-off point. So my wife goes from our house up to the city, gets a big load. She usually has somewhere in the vicinity of 50 or 60 gallons, plus a bunch of cheese and yogurt and meat and a whole bunch of stuff. She's got half a dozen coolers or so. She swings by Buc-ee's, grabs some ice, puts all the milk in, drives back, and then everyone from the surrounding probably 10 or 15 miles that wants raw milk, they come here and they pick up their raw milk from her. And she just started doing that because we were going to pick up raw milk, and she started chatting up the agent, and she had some friends who were like, hey, will you go get some for me? And she just kind of fell into it. $6 million per year importing O-rings with no employees. There's one company in the whole world that makes quality O-rings. They're in China, and you have to order 6 months in advance. The guy orders the rings and sells them to mostly flashlight companies at a markup and makes bank. He can't hire any employees because the business is too easy to copy. So there's the post. I'll drop the link here in the chat if you want to go look at some of the others, because there's a whole bunch more. He just highlighted his favorites. So if you're looking for some inspiration, there's his tweet with the link to the Reddit post, and you can get some ideas. Whit says, hell yeah, Amy, we do the same on a small level. We get our milk for free. Yeah, same. That's so far right now. I've tried to get her to monetize it even more. But she's got to be a little careful, because it's if she charges too much for the service, then people will just be like, I'll just go get it myself. It's not that far of a drive. But people tip generously, and then we get all of our milk for free. Very last point. Leave you with a little something wholesome and thought-provoking for the day. C.S. Lewis quote. Coffee with the Classics says, C.S. Lewis, how did you understand human nature so well? This is what he says. When a man is getting better, he understands more and more clearly the evil that is still left in him. When a man is getting worse, he understands his own badness less and less. A moderately bad man knows he's not very good. A thoroughly bad man thinks he is all right. This is common sense, really. You understand sleep when you are awake, not while you're sleeping. You can see mistakes in arithmetic when your mind is working properly. While you're making them, you cannot see them. You can understand the nature of drunkenness when you are sober, not when you are drunk. Good people know about both good and evil. Bad people do not know about either. I think that quote stands for itself. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for showing up. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode of the ASTROLABE tomorrow morning. Do me a favor and hit the like button on your way out. We got 115 still watching and 49 likes on YouTube. See if we can get that up to, let's see, can we get that up to 70 on your way out? There's 115 of you watching. If we can get 21 of you to hit the like button on your way out, that'll get us to 70. There it goes. Numbers going up. And join the Discord, as Taylor says. Kingpill.com. Join the Discord community. We ended up, instead of having a schizo stream on Friday, we had our conversation about Peter Thiel and on Joe Rogan. But this Friday, we should be able to have a schizo stream. I don't think I'll be going anywhere. So come join us for that and for the good conversation, the great memes, the work advice, commentary on Bitcoin and other tech things. We've got a whole bunch of nerds in there, so you guys can come nerd out with them. And the other thing was this afternoon in 25 minutes, I will be going live. Once again, let me grab the channel. Dimes and I will be talking to these guys. Some Germans. We're going to be fraternizing with the Krauts. Consequent Fry on YouTube. We're going to be discussing PayPal Mafia, the rising tech elite, and such things. So that'll be going live here at 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern, 25 minutes from now. Come join us for that live stream. I'll shout it out on Twitter if you guys can't find the channel. And then otherwise, I will see you guys tomorrow morning. Andrew says, what time are you going on with Jason? I need to schedule it with him. I just volunteered him to do it. I know he's going to want to. We talked about it briefly. So probably within the next couple of days in the afternoon, we'll do a stream breaking down the Thiel on Rogan episode more thoroughly. Anyways, follow me on Twitter at RealKingPill. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button on your way out. And I will see you guys